We are delighted to welcome Hildaland here this evening to perform at the Jacob Edwards Library. I hope that everybody is comfortable and ready for a rollicking night of wonderful music.
Thank you very much. We're Hildaland. It is such a pleasure to be here in Southbridge with you. Thank you all so much for coming out. It's great to be here. That was a tune that Louise here wrote, and we'll keep going with a tune of mine called Snow Home, and we'll follow it up in a set with one that our friend Jenna Moynihan wrote called The Middle. One, two, three.
much. This is Ethan Setiawan from Goshen in Indiana playing the octave mandolin for you. Yeah, you're welcome. It's like a normal mandolin, but it's one octave lower. So in case you were wondering why it had so many strings on there.
It's not a guitar.
It's not a guitar. My name's Louise. I grew up in Orkney, right in the very north of Scotland. I don't know if any of you have been to Scotland. Yeah. Has anyone been to Orkney? Lower chance. I knew that. Yeah, I grew up. It's a group of islands. There's about 70 different islands in Orkney, although many of them are just birds or baby sheep. But there are islands of like 30 people living in a tiny little community on an island. There's islands of a few hundred, and then the main island, which in the olden days was called Pomona, we just call it the Orkney mainland now, has the majority of people living there. With the biggest town has about 14,000 people, and then everyone's kind of spread. There's about 22,000 in the whole group of islands. So if people don't know me, they probably knew my granddad. You're Sidney Becon's granddaughter? Yep, that's right. So it's that kind of place. It's all farming and fishing and tourism, actually. And a great fiddle and accordion scene. Those were the two big instruments of my childhood growing up. My siblings all play fiddle, and some of them played accordion. So I was really lucky to be immersed in that world. We met studying at Berklee College of Music over in Boston, so that's how this band came to be. And we're here with a kind of program of music from both sides of the ocean there, and a kind of some things from in between, I guess. We'll play one just now. This is an old poem that was written by a Scottish poet. Her name was Alicia Ann Spottiswoode, and she was known by her husband's name, as was in those days the case. So she was Lady John Scott in public. And she wrote poetry, she wrote music as well. She played the harp, I think, and she sang. And she was just a really interesting character. Her family spent a lot of time in London as well as in the borders of Scotland, and famously she said she'd rather live in a castle in Scotland,
Nope.
a castle,
Nope.
Okay, start again. She would rather live in a pigsty in Scotland than a castle in England. She was very fond of being in the borders of Scotland and not so much of being in London. So this is one of her poems, and we thought it would be a fun thing to put it to music. So this one's called Ettrick, and it's just a beautiful and kind of sad poem of hers. So we'll play this for you. When we first rode down the trail, our bridles were ringing,
Our hearts were dancing,
the waters were singing,
the sun was glancing,
and blithely our hearts rang out together as we washed the dew from the blooming heather. When we first rode down the trail. together in sun or storm on the mountain heather. When I last rode down the track.
Thank you very much. We'll give you another tune of mine next, one called Coffee and Incense. While we do play traditional music from both Scotland and the US, we also, as you might have guessed, write a lot of music and do kind of a lot of our own work sort of inside of the traditions that we're talking about up here. So this is one of mine that kind of falls more into sort of bluegrass and old time, called Coffee and Incense.
We'll give you a couple of tunes that I discovered a few years ago. The first one is a Scottish strathspey, which is a kind of dance, and a kind of tune that accompanies that dance. And the big feature is the Scotch snap, which is this like short, long, kind of snappy rhythm thing. And the strathspey is called the Rothy Mercus Rant, and it's a really old traditional tune. And then I came over to the States and I was studying with Bruce Molsky, who's an incredible fiddle player and plays music from the Appalachian Mountains. And he played this tune called the Graf Spee, And I was like, that sounds very familiar. And it's been really interesting to hear him play these old time tunes and kind of trace them back in a way to the Scottish tunes that they no doubt came from, with the Scots that came over with their fiddles, and the tunes that kind of got passed around and from generation to generation. And it's really fascinating how music travels and changes as it does. Another great example is like Cape Breton. I don't know if anyone's been up to Cape Breton in Canada, but there's so many Scots that ended up there and brought their fiddles with them, and because of the isolation of it being an island, the music really kind of froze in time in a way, and over the years there's been Cape Bretoners who've gone back to Scotland to reteach things that have been lost in the Scottish tradition because of outside influence, and because of, you know, some of our culture being oppressed, and yet in Cape Breton, because of the isolation, it just stayed and thrived. So it's really interesting to me, whereas some of these tunes you'll find down in the mountains and like the Carolinas or wherever, these tunes have kind of morphed and changed, and I think this is a really good example of that. These two tunes are, you can hear the relation between the two, but they're still very different in a lot of ways. So these are just some fun tunes to play. So Rothy Marcus Rant and the Graf Spee.
give you another tune from Appalachia, from Kentucky. This is called Fall on My Knees. It's an old song that I'm going to sing for you. And Louise is going to cross-tune the fiddle here, which is a great thing you can do on the fiddle. It basically just means changing the tuning, and there are maybe 5 or 6 sort of commonly used, commonly accepted tunings. Although you could theoretically tune it however you want, it's still a cross-tuning. But right now, Louise is basically tuning to play in the key of A. These cross-tunings, the normal violin tuning is fairly versatile, it works pretty well in many different keys, and most cross-tunings kind of only work in one particular key. So we're about to play a song in A, and so Louise is going to the A cross-tuning here, or one of them. So here it is, Fall on My Knees. 1, 2, 3,
Seen the show Shetland? None of you you've been watching it? Okay,
No.
so that's good. Well, none of you will have the
Surprising.
fear of going to visit Shetland. There's a show, and it's like a murder mystery show, and a murder happens like every week on this group of islands in the north of Scotland, very similar to Orkney, just even further north. And it's just couldn't be further from the truth, and I find it very funny. And I met someone just this week who was delighted to go home and tell her husband that they could in fact actually probably go and visit Shetland and not get murdered. But it's a great show and showcases the beautiful landscapes of the island. And we'll play a couple tunes from up there next. I'm going to stick in this tuning. There's not many Scottish tunes that utilise different tunings to the original fiddle tuning, but in Shetland there are a few, and this is a couple that I actually learned these during the pandemic from a record of fiddle tunes from up in Shetland. There's a well-known fiddler called Ali Bain, who's I used to go and see as a kid. He would play the fiddle, and Phil Anderson would play the accordion. And I was always so excited to see them. My brother played the accordion. We kind of had a duo for a while, as much as we would sort of argue and wind each other up on stage because we were siblings. But we got to open for Phil and Andy one time, and it was just a very exciting time growing up with all this music around. And yeah, we thought it would be fun to play these couple of tunes from up in Shetland, really old Shetland tunes called Maggie of Ham and De Shalds o' Fula. So I'll just double check this real quick.
I guess I'll do the same. I've now cross-tuned this instrument as well, which is much worse recommended than cross-tuning the fiddle. It's much more problematic with all these strings, and everything moves when you change the tuning.
Our instruments love
So bear
the
with me.
temperature and humidity changes as much as we all do. We've actually just been, this week we've been in, we've been in a lot of states, including Missouri and California as well as being here. So our instruments have been well travelled this week, as have we, and so they're arguing with us a little bit. Hopefully they'll stay in tune though. All right.
We'll find out.
to normal.
How are you all doing out there? Great. Still awake? Great. We have a couple more here for you this evening.
Yeah, we'll go
Selkies.
back down from Shetland to Orkney. We'll take the 6-hour ferry journey together. We will sail across the roughest bit of sea. There's we'll sing a song that comes from Orkney. There's a lot of versions of this song. You might have heard some on yourselves as well, like an old folk tale about a Selkie, or the Selkie people. Selkies are, in Orkney it's just a word for seal, but it means this mythical creature that is a seal underwater, and then they come on land and they shed their seal skins and become beautiful human beings. And that said that the Selkies have to find themselves a human spouse, otherwise if they don't by a certain time they will become ugly. And so they often come on land and steal away Orkney people, and this is one of those stories, the Selkie of Soulskerry, where that happens. We took our band name, Hildaland comes from that as well. It's another version of the same kind of story, and Hildaland means hidden island in Old Norse. In Orkney, there was never any Gaelic spoken up in Orkney, but it was once part of Denmark and Norway, and so we have a lot of our dialect words and things come from Old Norse, all the place names and things like that. And so, yes, hidden island, it was what Hildaland translates to. And then in the story, the Orkney farmer has his wife stolen away by the Selkie people, and he manages to figure out how to steal the island back. He gets to figure out how to see it and steals it from the Selkie people, and it becomes visible to the human eye, and then it becomes known as Einhallow, which is what it's known as these days. So it's said to have been that the island that is now called Einhallow, Holy Island, was once called Hildaland, Hidden Island. So that's where we took the band name from, and we'll play this. It's the kind of title track to our CD that we have along with us, called The Selkie of Soulskerry. this side of the water. This one's called The Brushy Fork of Johns Creek. I was really excited to come over to study at Berkeley. I wanted to learn more about the music of this side of the pond. I really didn't have much of an idea, but I'd heard a lot of great music and was really excited about that. And so I spent a lot of time learning from Bruce Molsky and Darrell Langer is another brilliant fiddle player, as well as mandolinist Joe Walsh, not of the Eagles, Joe K. Walsh, equally as talented as a musician. Yeah, and I've had such a great time getting to know the music from this side of the pond and figuring out kind of those little connections to home and hearing these tunes that Bruce Molsky tells me is called one thing and I'm like, it's not, it's this tune and you're playing it wrong. So yeah, this is one of our favourites called The Brushy Fork of Johns Creek. Play a tune that I wrote for some relatives of mine in Canada. In 1950, my granny spent 6 months in Canada visiting with her first cousins and her aunt and uncles. She'd had family come over like early 1900, mostly to the prairies and mostly with the Hudson Bay Company, who Orkney was always their last stop off before they came over to Canada. They got a lot of supplies and things in Orkney and quite often picked up Orkney men to come and work for them as well. They were well known to be hardy and hard-working people, and so they heavily recruited in Orkney. And so my family, our family that moved over, and most of them are out west now in BC, some up in Ontario, but they started off in the prairies. And in 1950, my granny spent 6 months over there, running around, taking trains, going and visiting all her relatives and having a lovely time with her cousins. The reason being was that she had 2 marriage proposals and she couldn't decide what to do. So that's why she went there for 6 months, and they wouldn't let her go until she figured it out. So I wrote a lot of music for that story, and my first record came out almost like 8 years ago now, and I put together a whole record of music and photography and that kind of follows that story. And in the process got to know a lot of my relatives in Canada really well. And so this next tune is one that I wrote for my cousin Judy, who lost her husband just a few years ago now. So I wrote this for Judy and her husband Blair and just called it Judy and Blair's.
we'll play you one more set of tunes tonight. Thank you so much to everybody here at the Jacob Edwards Library, to Margaret for helping us get here. Thank you to Ted and the Southbridge Cultural Council and the Mass Cultural Council for sponsoring this whole thing and getting us here as well. What a pleasure it is. And everyone else here at the library, making this go. Everyone who's here with the television channel and recording us, and who's helped get the word out. Thank you to all those folks.
Yeah, keep coming out and seeing live music wherever you can. We're sure happy that you're here with us this evening. We'll finish up with some more Scottish tunes, if you don't mind. Played a lot of Scottish tunes. We'll finish up with one called The Sound of Sleet, and finish with another Shetland tune called Sleep Soon in the Morning. So, hope you enjoy. All right.
coming because it's so much fun when we've got a large audience.